Some of our readers may not know you that well, so if you'd be so kind, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I think the most important thing to get out of the way initially for this interview is that I didn't serve in the military, so I don't have firsthand military experience. I did spend a very unusual 3 years from age 10 to 13 with a youth group called the Young Marines, and a particularly odd group of Young Marines, a detachment that was led most of the time by cycling through active Marines. So I was the only 10-year-old I knew who learned the ethics of human ear collecting and saw a human ear necklace on his first day as a young Marine. So I have an appreciation for, at least a little appreciation for how hard the job is, and some odd training background. I spent a lot of those early years doing that. I write science fiction that has sort of mystery plot structures with a lot of action. I try to keep the pace going. My protagonist in my novels is someone who has done time as a mercenary, and I respect that and think that there's a lot of emotional depth to explore there. My day job is as CEO of a technology assessment company called Principled Technologies, and we test new tech products for companies that make the products.
Growing up, how much military fiction or military science fiction did you read?
I guess as a category, I didn't think of myself as reading military SF, but I read a lot of military SF because it was interesting, it had action. I certainly, like many kids, was heavily influenced by Heinlein and read all of those books. I also read a fair amount of history, and in many ways the most exciting part of history is the wars. So I read quite a bit there. And a lot of the young reader science fiction books that I read when I was very young were books that had conflicts between either military forces or lone individuals, and Tom Swift Jr. type books where there's always some kind of fight with some kind of machine, and so I cut my teeth on that stuff.
Which stories or authors were your favorites growing up?
I would say as a kid it would be a small number of writers. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle for the Sherlock Holmes books, because they gave me this belief that if you were smart enough and thought hard enough and thought well enough that you could accomplish anything. And that's a very science fictional mindset. And I've always thought of Sherlock Holmes as a kind of science fiction story for that reason. Heinlein, because he taught about social responsibility, about sacrifice. He had heroes who were heroes, particularly the younger Heinlein, sort of pre-Strangers in a Strange Land. And one particular Clifford Simak book, Time is the Simplest Thing, was a huge influence on me because it was the classic kid with special powers, alienated from everybody else, eventually finds others like him and gets to go off to a special place where there are only people like him. That was a very big deal to me because I was a very isolated kid, felt like I was alone, alienated, all of those things. And another book that I read over and over again to the point where the back fell off it and I had duct taped it together, didn't bother with the last page because I had it memorized, was a not very good book by Walter Moody called No Man on Earth, and it was about a boy chasing his father through the solar system, and I grew up without a father most of the time, so that resonated with me.
Did any of that fiction influence your choice of career?
Heinlein probably influenced me in the sense that I always thought I would do something near science, but then as I got older, I became interested in psychology and cognition, the particular part of psychology that is not so much about therapy, but about how the brain works. That's always fascinated me. And so I went into college as a double major in math and psych, two distinctly unemployable fields. And then I was on an accelerated course. I clept out of most of the first year of college, and at the end of my second year, I was one senior seminar away from graduating, and I took a computer class under the math heading because I'd been hacking with computers and doing various illegal things. And I found out that I liked it and you could get paid for it. Computer programmers were getting real jobs, and psych majors and math majors weren't so much. So I changed majors, stayed a third year in college, did the 2.5-year computer science curriculum in a year, causing my worst grades of my life. And yeah, it was terrible. And ended up graduating after 3 years, went to grad school, planning to get my doctorate, lasted 15 months and got my master's and left in disgust because, as a guy I later worked with, observed the most amazing thing about university politics is that the stakes are so small. And I was just disgusted with it. I had had this vision that when you got to graduate school, all of a sudden it was a world of people who were like Plato and Socrates and all about learning for the sake of learning. And I was there for that. And it was so far from that. It was so far. So my grad school experience was kind of a bitter one. And after 15 months, I said, I'm not taking the qualifying. I'm out. And I did my paper, got my master's, and left.
As a corollary, has your work with high technology influenced your fiction writing since?
Well, working in the tech field, particularly with computing and communications, I think has put me in a nice position to see some aspects of what the future is going to be like. But it's also because of the particular job I've been doing for a long time, testing products before they come out. I've just developed this notion of always living a little bit ahead. And that's influenced my fiction. And I think that what the internet will be, the rise of connected, intelligent devices where some of those devices are people, is going to prove to be as significant as the wheel or fire. It isn't yet, but I think it will play out to be that way because of the implications of what happens when you connect a lot of very intelligent things at very high speeds. And so that's certainly affected the way I write and the futures that I see.
Does it affect your media habits these days?
Well, I definitely, like everybody, spend more time online than I probably should, but I do have a very old fart desire to own the physical thing. The younger people in my company download a video, download a set of songs or an album from iTunes. That's the same to them as buying the CD. To me, I like having the CD. I like having the DVD. And so consequently, you know, as you saw when you walked through the media room, I have like 4,000 DVDs and 3,000 CDs, and I still haven't really made the full leap to just, it should live on storage somewhere. But it definitely, I spend a lot of time online and connected all the time, like everybody.